Hey.
Aren't you supposed to be working on your dissertation?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, why does it sound so bad? Gosh.
How you doing?
I'm okay. That's much better. I'm okay. Just was yeah, yeah. I'm cooking, taking a break to cook dinner. Just I'm by
You're allowed
myself.
to eat.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Um, yeah, I'm by
Did you
myself this
listen?
week. So yeah, I listened. I was able to, since I'm working from home, and no one else is around. I was able to listen. Um, yeah, it was nice. I thought it was a nice chat you guys had.
Yeah, a little controversial. I mean, we definitely talked about a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, for your channel, for you, I don't know that I don't think it was even top 10 controversial, but like in a very limited, you know, it's only gonna be controversial to like the Jews who watch you who are like in the know anyway, and even then it's not gonna be that much. And like, you.
Yeah, I mean the Jews who listen to me know me. I I I kind of wonder if Rabbi Mallet might not get some patch for some of the stuff I said and whatever.
Is anyone in his world even aware? I don't even know.
I don't know. I mean, in his world, like he seems to be involved in a very Haredi. I don't know what the Houston community's like. I don't know who exactly where he teaches and stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Okay. No, I thought it was good. I thought you guys, um, just certainly drifted a little bit into kind of like inside baseball, but like, it's okay. To be expected.
this corner of the internet, I think people actually like inside baseball. It shows authenticity.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I got it sucked in from him. Not that he
Okay.
Paskins, but I got it sucked in from him that a that Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, even be'iyun you're allowed to teach Gentiles.
That that doesn't surprise me that much. I mean, I thought they're supposed to be able to learn the mitzvot that apply to them.
Well, so the question is be'iyun, right?
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I understand the nuance, but I'm not. I
Well,
guess I
so
haven't. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Explain the.
one of the ideas is that they're allowed to learn all of Torah, just not be'iyun.
Mm-hmm.
And Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, then that's there. It's already not a devar mutar, but it's a devar mitzvah.
Right.
But the question becomes be'iyun. Like maybe be'iyun, that's already more than that is necessary.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have. I mean, I would have knowing. This is not obviously. I don't ask. I don't know, but like, I would have thought that the biyun position or the not teaching biyun position applied to the Torah that wasn't mitzvah for them anyway. I wouldn't have presumed that anything that was devar mitzvah would have. That I thought that. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, that's cool. Good.
Which means once you finish your dissertation, we can actually have our chavrusa on
Yes.
Sanhedrin.
Yeah. You have to be
It's been like
careful though.
2 years.
You
Yeah.
know, we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's see. I mean, so I've. Well, it's hard. Look, I'm working on it. It's just it's slow and trying to balance the full time job on top of it. So
This was my concern when you took your full time job.
I know it was my advisor's concern too. Though she's more concerned about me publishing papers than my actual dissertation, but that's a separate thing. Um, I will get there. It's not, as I said, and for my program and my field, I mean, you don't you don't not finish basically. Like there's no reason to do grad school unless you're planning to finish, and there's no backup. Like it's not like I earned a master's on the way. There's nothing to show for it if I don't finish.
I
Um,
know. My MPA JD, I was 8 units short when I dropped out.
mhm.
Got nothing for it.
That's painful. You know how painful it is. I can't. I don't want to think about that. I've been doing this years now, 8.5
Yeah.
years. I mean, look, I have a fine job. It's not but like one, my job is contingent on me finishing too. So like, if I don't get it, I'm gonna get in trouble. But let's get in there. I mean, I don't know. It's 12 chapters. It's just a lot.
Wow, that is a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. So I'm just trying to get. Well, right now I'm just trying to get these 2 chapters that are written just into better shape. I got like one of them was rejected as a journal paper, mostly for tone, which is not something I've ever gotten before. But they gave me 15 pages of comments back, so I can't publish this chapter of my dissertation without addressing the majority of those, like just because I know that they're there. So I'm just trying to work through this. I've never gotten so many comments on a journal paper ever, even ones that are rejected, like don't get this much attention. So it means it's probably worth trying to salvage, which is good, but it just means there's a lot to kind of get through.
They rejected it on tone? What does that
That
even
was the
mean?
that was the primary thing. As I said, there's still 15 pages of comments. So there's other things that they wanted me to do, but the reason they rejected it, that they gave, because the reviewers, most of them actually thought it was fine, but the editors, rejected it on tone.
So
Yeah,
the editors accepted it, and then the reviewers accepted it, and then the editors gave an excuse why they don't like you and they don't want to publish your paper.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, look, I've never had a tone rejection before, but I did know that this paper was going to be more controversial. And I actually gave it to someone else in the field to look at before I submitted it, asking for comments specifically because I was worried that I would get called out. And there's no question that I stepped on some toes because this paper is like kind of a review of everything that's kind of gone wrong in this field in the past 15 years. And at least I kind of focused on 10 or 12 authors specifically or works specifically. And at least 2, if not 3 of those people were among my reviewers I know. I mean, obviously it's anonymous, but like one of the people actually, the one who was kindest, and I'm pretty sure I know who it is. So they wrote, like they explicitly said, my work's included in the ones here. So it's clearly like, whatever. Conflict.
Inside robotics,
Not just
baseball.
robotics. This is my very, very specific niche within that. So I do like this human robot trust stuff. So this is like, there are very few people who do this.
What is it? Consumer robot
human
trust?
human robot trust. So
what does that mean?
So basically we have, obviously trust is not a new concept, but it's really, really hard to measure. Even like human trust is hard to measure. We don't, and it's even more complicated to measure when one person isn't human. But there's lots of benefits to be able to understanding how human machine trust works and how it's different than human and how it's the same. So my paper's mostly, my work's mostly psychology more than engineering, right? I'm trying to I do experiments seeing how how people understand machines, how they come to trust them, how that trust gets broken, how you can repair it, how you design for it, how you properly calibrate for it so you don't overtrust or undertrust. Or the opposite. I mean, you can just flip it and just be without suspicion. I mean, that's the other way to do this work. But yeah, so I basically work on designing measures for this. So I do explicit like survey measures. So how you design a survey properly to get at this stuff. Other people kind of do it from the physiology side. I mean, I do also do behavioral. So I do I look at the behaviors, I look at the psychology, I look at how people consciously and unconsciously think about this stuff, and then I try to correlate it all and see if I can measure it.
Okay, so you should be the one who's talking about our secure distributed cognition, not me.
Potentially. I mean, I shouldn't necessarily be talking about the content of it. I can talk about how you secure it, potentially.
How do you secure distributed cognition?
Well, first, make sure you actually have something you want to secure. Because I think that's the biggest challenge with all this stuff. I mean, this is the first thing that comes up in all my work. If your robot or machine or system is below 70 or 80% accurate or good or capable, you're wasting your time doing anything else. So you have to get to a minimum level of capability or quality. And if you can't get there, and beyond that, forget that you can't get there. If you can't convince people that you're even close to that, you've just wasted any time trying to measure stuff. And that's kind of what I find a lot in my field, is that like half the time, more than half the time, 90% of the time, it's not even worth doing what I do, because most systems are just not at the capability or quality that we would need them to be.
So they don't have enough fidelity for anybody to actually trust them regardless of what you do.
Correct. Now, people might initially trust them because they don't know anything about it, but they're going to rapidly realize that they're mistaken, and there's no way to recover that trust, because like it never was merited in the first place. We have a huge issue in my area. It's actually true in human trust. Look, I do interpersonal, so I'm doing like one-on-one stuff mostly. I'm not doing like the government, politics. I'm not doing some or like leaders that you don't know personally. I'm talking about like these are personal interaction type trust. But there's a big issue that we tend to over-trust. Now, not everyone and not all the time, and this is a bigger issue in the West. Well, actually, it's not true. This is a bigger issue for younger people. It's a bigger issue for people who have, like, for machines, right? So people who have experience with technology, essentially. Like, even playing video games, like, people tend to over-trust any technology just because they're exposed to it, and, like, so...
have you been paying any attention to the Twitter files?
Yes. I'm not caught up fully. I think I'm at the 5th draft, which I think they're a couple past that now, right?
Today's drop was explosive.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I am working on dissertation, so I don't get to keep up with everything.
So Twitter. So one of the things that Elon recently changed was Twitter now shows view counts.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not on Twitter, so you'll have to definitely explain some of this to me, because I don't know how things work.
So generally, what you saw on Twitter before was number of comments, number of retweets, and number of likes, and you could click on something and see the retweets versus quote tweets. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the signals on whether people liked something was the ratio of likes and retweets to quote tweets and comments. And what he started showing recently was number of times a tweet has been viewed, period.
I have mixed feelings, but you tell me how it's going first.
Well, these Twitter files, it's the first time I have seen such huge view numbers on. Okay. This is like Twitter Files 8. I haven't gone back and looked at but the most recent one, Twitter, and each one, because he's been giving reporters access to information.
Yeah.
And so each one has progressively gotten more and more interesting and like explosive. And today was the COVID stuff.
Okay.
And the views on the first thing on was like at 8 million or 9 million, something really large, which it's like, and the major newspapers are not covering this stuff at all.
Yes, I've noticed that.
And they've been saying, oh, this is a nothing burger. Well, today, like, so they were showing so we knew about Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford, who was censored, but
Hmm.
today it was somebody from Harvard who was censored, and somebody who was just sharing CDC data who was censored, and like there was there's been a lot more discussion about this one than previous ones, and it's kind of funny because when the mainstream media finally decides, oh, we can't shut up about this,
Hmm.
they're gonna have to explain why for the past 2 weeks they haven't been saying anything about this.
Yep, I hear you. And I'm, yeah, I hear. Um, it's okay. Well, I guess I'll have to check it out. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if view counts are great. It depends on how they're doing them. I don't know how good of a metric they are. I mean, this isn't my area, but my area is measuring things, and like, or kind of one of my areas. And like, how do you, right? The platform itself kind of chooses what you see to some extent, right? So like, and also what does a view on Twitter count as? Like, is it, is it on the screen? Is it, I keep it on for 5, 10 seconds? Like, at what point is it counted
I
at?
I think every time it's served, it's it,
Right.
it's
Well,
included.
if I was Twitter, that's how I would do it, right? I mean, I'm
Right.
not saying it's a good metric, but if I was Twitter and I wanted to make sure that something looked very popular, or wanted to make sure that I'm showing the
Well,
highest engagement numbers possible, of course I would do it that
right.
way.
But one of the things about it is it's not just a
Hi,
measure. Hi,
Sandy.
Sandy. It's not. It's also a measure that's useful for people who um, people like us to know. Oh, is my view is my like am I being shadow banned or not?
Right, and
So
it
it's
reminds.
transparency.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I mean, one, if you trust that it's accurate, then I get it. Um, the it reminds me also of kind of just metrics from advertising, right? So they don't really know how many people. I mean, they have other metrics for engagement and ROI and click through rates and all those things, but there is kind of a base metric of how many people are seeing this, and that's kind of a lot of what they pay for, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's effective or not, and whether it's engaging or not, like they're paying for eyes on their thing.
That
And that's
that's how people pay for things. Yeah.
and if you treat Twitter as basically advertising your thoughts, which is kind of what it is, uh, then yeah, I get it. I mean, I don't know if it's my favorite metric, but yeah, no, I get it.
I'm curious, Joseph, when you were
Yeah.
talking before about robotics and trust, and now you're talking about, or Jacob's talking about Twitter and things, I'm looking it up. It reminds me of something before somebody was saying in here about, oh, well, maybe, there's not that interest because somebody clicks on and right off of the YouTube. I do that constantly because what I do is I pull them into my watch later. I don't want to lose the opportunity to watch something, but I don't have the time to watch it in the moment. So that doesn't really tell you what you think it's telling you. It's
Hmm.
actually saying, hey, I'm saving this for later, but they don't think there's anywhere it actually tells the person that.
Yeah.
And when I looked up the Twitter stuff, they were like talking about, well, when I go right into it, it doesn't get clear, but it said something about a minimum 2-second view. And then it bases some of its ratings on whether you watch 50% of it. And I'm like, well, there again, me clicking on and off something, or me just kind of like scrolling past something, if I was looking for something else that my notifications have said that I'm interested in, it doesn't tell them accurate information based on me scrolling past something to get to what I was looking for. At
Right.
least
And
that's what I'm curious about. So
yeah, and Jacob will
it
tell you like
measures
for
that.
YouTube, like Jacob will tell you for YouTube, right? He has this whole dashboard when he sees his channel and he gets all this information and there's different things that will tell you like this is how long, so this is the average watch time, this is how long, like, they'll see like a graph of the distributions, I mean, I don't actually use
Yeah,
mine
it's
yet because I
not
don't get enough
really
people.
good.
It's not
But
great, but it's
yeah.
different. It gives you different information on like, are people staying for the first minute of your videos, or 8 minutes, or 12 minutes, or percentage, your first 25% of your, I don't know, whatever. There's different ways to calculate these things. I think Twitter has a unique challenge, unlike YouTube, in that, well, maybe like more like YouTube Shorts or TikTok, right, where the content is so short, you can't use time-based metrics very well on it. because you're only reading this tweet that's like what, a sentence, 2, 3. Like there's just no, unless it's a big thread like the Twitter file dump, like you really just can't measure based on, oh, this person spent 2 seconds. Like to me, that's like a meaningless thing. So yeah, so views is something, but it's not great. But I don't even know what they would do better necessarily beyond the things that they already do with comments and likes and like what Jacob was saying.
Again, I think it's mostly as a way for transparency to know I'm not being shadow banned. People are actually getting served this, whether or not they read it.
Right. And right now, obviously, the shadow ban thing's a concern because it became very salient with the Twitter files. The first the first or second one that became like a thing that was obvious. Now, it just, there are other parts to this, right? Like, do we trust their numbers? Could they make someone think that they're not being shadow banned when they really are? Could they be purposefully something that I've thought about, because the networks do this automatically, is segregating opinions basically into echo chambers, and like you can be not shadow banned but also like invisible to most of a network because you're just kind of trapped in a corner of it essentially, even if it's a big corner. And like you don't know anything about the distribution of your 1,000 within the network, and like how it's not random at all, right? I mean, that's, in Twitter at least, that's certainly the case because you have people, right? I don't use Twitter, but like as far as I know, right, you have followers and you have the people that you follow, and then it kind of just loops.
The fact is that vast majority of people don't have a Twitter account at all, and they see tweets when other people post a tweet somewhere.
Right.
And that is part of what actually he was, I think Elon Musk was trying to show, was part of the thing is there's a lot of people who they don't have a Twitter account, including me. For a while, I didn't use my Twitter account because I deliberately got myself suspended by saying Ellen Page is a woman. And so I had to be logged out of Twitter to see anything on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. When I to read anything, right? I mean, I can't even see everything on Twitter, but I know, like for the Twitter files, for instance, like I'm not logged in, right? Like I'm using it and reading it. And the other thing, right, is that, and I don't know what's going to happen. I guess maybe now nothing will happen, but when he was feuding a little bit with Facebook, and like I was wondering what was going to happen at Apple, right? I was kind of wondering what was going to happen is if tweets weren't going to be shared on other platforms anymore, or easily shared. They're shooting themselves in the foot, right?
Well, the thing with Apple, I mean, you can buy a Twitter subscription for $8 on the web or $11 on Apple's platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's the only one doing the differential,
right,
not letting Apple take a cut for free, and that was itself amusing. But I mean,
well, that's going to change. That's changing anyway, isn't it? Because aren't the new European laws on apps mean that they have to provide they have to provide a version, even if it's more expensive, where they don't take a cut?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that's something that's starting this year out of the rules that got passed over the past couple of years in the EU. So whether he's doing it first or not, like it's going to be a thing where you'll have 2 versions of apps. Well, everything will have differential pricing at some point soon.
And part of it is what's been shown is, okay, all the stuff that Twitter's doing, that Twitter was doing as far as censorship, Facebook and YouTube and all of them are participating, and he's exposing all of them.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I feel like personally, from doing the trust research, I'm frustrated at the guy who, well, maybe gets a little too much of the blame, but a lot of the blame, and fairly, is his title was the head of trust at Twitter.
he had a PhD in communications on
Yeah.
like part of me is so I saw somebody being like Yoel Roth, he's Jewish and is he related to the Rothschilds? And I responded, "Oh, you think Jack Dorsey and Vijaya Gotti hired him because he was Jewish?" And the guy answered yes. And my thought was, if I was with Vijaya Gotti and I wanted to hire somebody to be the fall guy, yeah, maybe I would pick a Jew. You're allowed to chew, Yosef.
Thanks. I mean, yeah, having dinner.
Safer than just swallowing. Please chew.
Okay. Anyway. So, I didn't realize you moved.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. You
yeah.
said that the other day in your stream. Was it last night or the other day before?
Yeah, I moved my apartment to a new place because yeah, it's complicated, but I ended up living on the west side. Like if this wasn't my parents' place that I'm living rent free and is not allowed to be rented to non-family because it's a co-op, like there's no way I would live in this place. I would rent it and get the rent and like live somewhere else. 100%. But it's a place that cannot be rented and my parents don't want to sell it because for reasons. And so I had to move in order for my parents basically to agree to move out. And it doesn't have an elevator and it's on the second floor and like my mom's knees couldn't take it. So I was like, okay, I'll move in, you guys move out, which they did. And I'm living in this place which is much nicer than anything I would ever rent for myself and much bigger, and Happy doesn't like the fact it's so big and she misbehaves if I leave her alone. She destroyed her kennel. I had to buy a new one. She destroyed my bedroom. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So, like, yeah, I bought a new resistant kennel. I haven't assembled yet. And we'll see what she does with it. But, like, yeah, she gets... Dogs like smaller spaces, especially with separation anxiety. And, like, my old place was tiny, and my new place, it's just a one bedroom. Like, it was too small for my parents, but it's more than big enough for me. So I'm gonna be giving up my office and moving my office in home.
I mean, that's a nice benefit.
Yeah. Part of the reason I had this office was to, like, get me out of the house. Because... yeah, I don't know how much I would actually, like, get out of the house if I'm working from home. And that's not exactly the healthiest thing in the world. Although I have to walk
right, you have to walk
Happy every day, yeah. But, like, just getting in the car, driving here, a tiny bit of socializing with the other people here at the office, that type of stuff. But I'm going back to school, so.
Oh, right. When did that start?
January.
Nice.
Yeah, I actually took 3 courses this semester, although now I'm dropping that entire... I took 3 courses for a substance abuse counseling thing, but I decided ultimately I'm going to have to get a master's degree anyway, so it's not worthwhile finishing it. But... yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they were easy courses at a community college, but still, yeah. And hopefully I learned something. We'll see.
Right. Hopefully it'll make your other classes a little bit easier. You've already covered it.
Eh, the fact is, part of what I noticed is I already know more than the teachers. It's like,
No.
especially I was sitting there taking a law class that was supposed to be like ethics for our thing, and it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I've already been to law school. I'm not even gonna bother to correct all the things the professor was getting wrong.
Okay.
This will
Fair
be
enough.
very good practice for when you're out in the working world and have these thoughts in your job context.
Yes.
Well, have I? So obviously, you haven't heard me explain why I am an independent insurance agent, and
Oh yeah.
being an independent insurance agent is the only job I've been able to keep for over a year, which is I can't stand stupidity, and I end up telling my boss that and losing my job.
Yep.
This doesn't surprise you, does it?
Not at all. Not
My
at all.
mind's going, is this why God has called you into a social work field where you're going to be dealing with this on an hourly basis?
Well, LCSWs still work for themselves. I've only done it 3 times, but over the past 10 years of being an insurance agent, but I've hung up on clients.
Yeah.
And if I was working for somebody else, I would they would have called. One of them actually called back and wanted to speak to my manager. Like I would have lost my job, you know? And it's like, no, there's a level of stupidity I refuse to deal with. And like working for yourself, you have that freedom.
Yeah, I still think Sandy's point stands. You're gonna be exposed to a whole other world in helping people here. That's I think I'd call it a tikkun. It's your tikkun to.
Well, in insurance, I mean, I'm mostly the reason I do mostly health insurance was because Obamacare came out and I learned it, and so I'm definitely helping
Oh yeah,
people
for sure.
who it's not business to business or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I get you're helping people. This is dealing with a different side of people and a very different level, I think, that you're getting into here.
We'll see. Yeah. Hopefully. We'll see.
So it's is it part-time masters?
No, it's a full-time master's, although a lot of people do it part-time, and it's supposed to be 2 years, but if you should be able to finish in a year and a half. It's all online. So, you can take the stuff, and part of the master's is actually working in places.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do internships and stuff. And then you have to do 3,000 hours, which is
Serious. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes, but hopefully it'll be good. No, I worked I worked at retail. I worked at a phone bank. Honestly, when it's like a thing that like my boss on a daily basis tells me to do something stupid. It's one thing to deal with people like, and you don't have to deal with them, like they go away. But like, so when I was working at the Los Angeles Housing Department, we had this meeting, and one of the people who was going to be at the meeting was trying to get a projector to work. And this was before everything. And this was like almost 20 years ago. This was 20 years ago. And was trying to get a projector to work, and whoever it was couldn't get the projector to work. So they called my boss, and he was an attorney. So he's like an attorney for the city. And they call him in, and he calls me in to help try to get this projector to work. and the IT person gets called, and the head of IT gets called, right? So the six of us are standing there while the head of IT it says, "Oh, the cord is worn," and was standing there trying to like make it work, like the connection work, and I'm sitting there for half an hour thinking about like, okay, this is a $10 cord, right? And like all just my salary, what I was getting paid was more than that cord was worth. And I said, what are we all doing standing here? Our salaries are way more than that cord. Just go buy a new cord. And I left the room. And my boss called me in and he said, you can't say stuff like that. There are budgets and salary is different. And so it was the type of thing like, and I got into trouble and like, I just can't deal with stupidity like that. Like $1,000 an hour was in that room for half an hour, like trying to twist it. It's like, just
it happens all the time, though. I mean, like people just don't think like that, and they don't like. Even for us, we'll have a room full of PhDs in engineering. We'll have we can't get a projector working sometimes. You know, it happens.
And everybody's sitting there like. Well, the thing is, the problem was a cord that was maybe $10.
Right.
Buy a new cord.
So I'm curious, Joseph, when I popped on, I was going to ask you if your conundrum with people in robotics and trust is somewhat akin to the people pushing elevator buttons repeatedly, and whether or not that indicates trust or lack of trust, or simply an overabundant desire for autonomy of being right or being able to solve it. And now Jacob's reminding me of that with this cord thing again.
Yeah, it's not so much of a trust thing with the elevator buttons, as far as I can tell. I think that's much more a matter of like control. People want to have control. They want to think they have control. They want to assert control, and they get an illusion of it by hitting the button over and over again. I mean, it doesn't, or well, often they actually don't. Often it undermines their illusion of control. But yeah, that's not. People generally trust, like you don't think that the elevator is not going to come. You do know that it is going to come at some point, and you do trust that it will get you to another floor and it's not going to break in the middle and that the button's working. Like you don't. I guess some people sometimes think, oh, the buttons might be broken, but then they're not going to hit it a second time. Like it would be silly. I mean, they might because people aren't necessarily. People aren't always that logical. People aren't always that logical, and sometimes if they expect the button to like light up to show that it's coming or something, and then like then maybe. But like I don't think it's really so much of a trust thing there. I mean, personally, I think it's much more of a control.
Okay, so Joseph, how are you making people feel better about the fact you're trying to murder us all with AI?
Yeah. So I work on Skynet, and well, this is why I qualified. I don't just try to make this. I don't design things to be trust more. Like I don't design things so that we trust them more. It's about trust calibration. I want to make sure that we trust them the right amount, and that means distrust them the right amount. And this has been the frame in human machine trust, at least. Like the idea that it's about calibration has been kind of the standard for the past 20 years, because like people in America especially have something that's called the Terminator bias. Actually, like in the literature, it's called the Terminator bias because of all these movies from the 80s, essentially, that corrupted a whole generation into thinking that robots were much more dangerous than certainly they were back then. Maybe now they're beginning to get to the level of capabilities where we actually might have to start worrying. But like in the 80s, it was science fiction. But it ingrained this bias that's actually been more harmful, I think, than helpful. Interestingly, we can tell this because we have other parts of the world that these movies were not as big in, and had much more positive views of robotics, especially Japan and South Korea. And the way that they think about and invest in these things, and also protect against them, just tends to be a lot smarter and more holistic, and like they're less chained to kind of let's say fantastical concepts. So therefore, they're actually putting in the safeguards for the technology as it exists, as opposed to based on the fears of what it could do when it's not there yet.
That actually happened at the estuary I was at when we were talking. It seemed to me, I would like to think I have a better handle on what AI is actually capable of right now. And like a lot of people, well, there were only like 5 of us there, but like 2 of the people there were, and John Van Donk as well. But basically everybody other than me was like, yeah, AI is like reaching sentience. And I was like, we are not even close to that. But I know that because you've told me, like, we're not even close to that.
No, we're not. We're not.
And they were worried that, for example, the algorithms are manipulating the human beings beyond what the engineers were. And I was like, no. The problem is the engineers. The problem is not the algorithm.
Yes and no. I wouldn't say the problem's the engineers exactly. It's a combination. It's a combination. Because most engineers, when they're working on this stuff, one, they're not really working at the level. They're working at pretty low-level stuff. A lot of the engineers, right? They're working on making sure this function within this algorithm, works, and they're going to they're going to write the logic, and they're going to test it, and they're going to debug it. They're not. There's very few people working at kind of the emergent level. And there's very few people, you can't anticipate the emergent level either, for the most part, in a lot of these algorithms. I mean, eventually, once it's out in the open and like you're seeing how it works in the world, then you need people to kind of come back and like start working on it and like, I don't know, optimizing, controlling, constraining, regulating. But for a lot of this stuff, because regulation and law and even ethics and frameworks for this are so far behind where the technology is. And the technology it's not a sentience. It's not a sentience at all. But look, the fact is that the only part of the economy, the only part of this that's regulated at the moment is drones, and the FAA took years to work out the laws for drones, and they still haven't finished them.
Okay, right? But you know what? If you want a head of trust and safety, you don't hire a PhD in communications. You hire somebody who actually took classes on ethics or law. But they are deliberately not following the case law and all the things that we've actually learned. So I can tell you
that this isn't fully true. At Twitter, it's true. I've met the ethicists, some of them at Google. I've met at least 2 of the one lawyer, one ethicist who works at for YouTube's like censorship side. Like, so the side specifically, I mean, they were dealing mostly with like, really creepy stuff that they had to like make sure that don't get out there, right? And like their jobs, I mean, those are not jobs I would ever want to touch, because those are, I mean, forget the ethical conundrums, right? Like the stuff that they have to look at or like the content they have to deal with is just like so weird, creepy, disturbing. But look, these companies have groups. Now look, Google has had a really hard time hanging on to its ethicists. They keep firing them, which is like a really bad sign. And these are like, yes, I mean, you wouldn't like them for many reasons. Like these are often, they're very woke and whatever, but these are the people who generally are also very sensitive. Most of them have law degrees. They're very sensitive to the legal issues here, or they have PhDs in ethics. And Google has had a huge issue trying to retain them, because it seems that they're not listening to them, and that they're basically either they leave on their own or they're getting fired because they're kind of opposing management and opposing other corporate, internal practices, which is a bad sign. Now they're
how are you?
Right. So there's this tension because there's a tension. There's a tension because they are, at the one hand, they're hiring these people. They seem to be wanting to care about this stuff, and on the other hand, at least for Google, Now, I'm not seeing this at the other companies as much. I think each company, to some extent, has had a different challenge. Like Twitter didn't have anyone, as far as I can tell, doing any of this stuff, as far as I can tell. But
who is Greg Enriquez? I have no idea who Greg Enriquez is.
no, isn't that the guy from that's the guy who talks to Vervaeke, right? The psychologist. Yeah.
He did the elusive eye with.
Yeah.
The reason that you guys have moved on to this AI thing, and so I hate to get involved. That's why I did the chat thing instead. The reason that I brought it up, I'll go ahead as long as I've interrupted. I might as well carry on. Was to ask if you knew why he let his license to practice clinical psychology lapse, because I think it's a very common problem. He basically came to this epiphany that I don't know if you know about the repeatability problem that's occurred. That's basically crushed psychology as a science. But the challenge that Greg came to was that he sort of, through the last couple of years, maybe longer, has come to believe or somehow more richly engage with this underlying truth that the people that he's engaging with professionally in that sphere don't need propositions. And that found this in the medical industry too, that people benefit as much from an hour with a clinical advocate as they do with any other course of treatment, because the more you know about somebody and their behavior and their daily life and their psychological state, the more you can advocate for them. And Greg basically said what people need is a friend, and I'm not professionally allowed to be their friend. I am only allowed to engage with them on this clinical level. And since now I know that I can't provide them what they need, what I need to do is, he made the choice to let his license lapse and be the friend he needed to be to the people that he had in his life. And I just imagine that is a torturous position to be in, that I imagine, Jacob, that you will go through, is you will see all of these people that all they need is a real friend, and you won't have the capacity to be that. And as a matter of fact, that level of engagement will be forbidden professionally.
Okay. Well, right. I have to tell you, this was part of why I was sitting there with my professor, supposedly teaching legal ethics. And I was sitting there just listening to him say a lot of things about what is demanded by professional ethics, and in fact our textbook, which was complete bullshit. And the corruption of the APA and the corruption of basically all the professional organizations, this is part of what I was trying to say regarding
I know Mark's pointing it out in the chat. If you haven't seen it yet, Jacob, there's one episode specifically of Greg Enriquez and John Vervaeke, and I'm trying to remember, there's a third guy with them. I can't remember if it was Elusive Eye or Untying the World Knot, but there's one episode where it's just Greg talking 80% of the time about the current, or the field of psychotherapy and kind of how it ended up in this position and how it got corrupted. And it's one of the best episodes, one of my favorite episodes with Vervaeke, actually. But probably one of the two best ones that I've heard from Greg Enriquez, and you should definitely check out that episode.
I will. Obviously, being surprised is surprising, but yes. I would be surprised if I'm surprised, because this is something that I have somewhat been
right. No, I get that. he went through a number of schools within psychotherapy. He's gone through a number of different approaches and trainings and things, and I think he has a very interesting view because he's seen it from a bunch of different sides, and he's kind of seen trends in ways that most people, because they're just not, they tend to specialize in a single field of psychotherapy. They don't tend to necessarily see it, whereas he's gotten an interesting range of exposures, so he's kind of picked up on some stuff that I think, it's worth.
So tomorrow, I am actually having a discussion with a narrative therapist, and the part of what we are going to discuss is narrative therapy has kind of it's emerged as something like psychotherapy, but and he has a master's degree, and it's supposed to be therapy, but it's very much based on postmodernist ideas. And I told him, like, when I spoke to him, I'm like, he invited me on his podcast, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna be ranting about how much I hate Michel Foucault, right? And he's like, oh, good, because I've been ranting about Michel Foucault. The fact is, there's a reason why Jordan Peterson rants about the American Psychological Association, as well he should. And I don't know. It's possible that I actually did listen to Vervaeke, at least somewhat. I think Vervaeke also realizes how little scientific rigor there has been in psychology. And yeah, it's something I'm definitely aware of. I guess it's possible that it is worse than even I think it is. But if it's actually worse than I think it is, that's a lot worse. Whereas I'm so skeptical, like it's usually pretty. Although I have to say the Twitter files have been in fact worse than I thought they were.
Yeah, Mark. I know Mark's listening, even though for some reason I can't figure out how I comment in the chat here. So, do you remember what episode? I can't from StreamYard. Okay, so
on StreamYard.
Mark, if you can drop the link and or just remind us. Yeah, I thought it was episode 2 or 3, so that's good. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. If you want to actually find the
I think it's elusive not, and it's early. I thought it's one of the first 4 episodes, but he thinks it's 2. I think it might be 3. We can probably easily check it. I will. Yeah, it's something.
Well, I mean, honestly,
I'm nowhere near as skeptical about anything or as you are, as you know. But like even I was like, this is good stuff. Like this is worth, Yeah, and I think it's different, right? Because Vervaeke doesn't have that side, right? He's doing cog psych, but he's not a therapist, and like obviously he's read stuff by therapists and it's part of his training, but like he's not in that world exactly. So I thought that this is the value that Garrett Enriquez brings is kind of like Peterson, that he has therapy experience. He's a little bit different, and he's a little bit out there in my opinion. He's like, he has this kind of like, what do you want to call it? He has like a philosophy of everything. So like it's not continental philosophy, but it's like that, where he has like he has like something that ties together philosophy and biology and psych and neuroscience, like all as a single kind of whatever.
I'm wondering, I might have actually seen.
He has his Untangling the World Knot episodes like 9 through 12, where him and Vervaeke kind of present like their synthesis, which is the thing that Vervaeke was doing in short.
I have listened to him speak to Vervaeke.
Okay, so you need to watch this one episode if you've never caught it, or you can just get a refresh on it. Generally, I don't like him quite as much as Vervaeke, because I think some of his stuff's just maybe a little too out there for me, and maybe not quite grounded enough. I know a lot of his stuff his initial major thought he came to during like some sort of drug experience. In like 35 years ago, which doesn't necessarily disqualify it. Maybe he had some deep insight about the world, but But there are some really good stuff that he has done with Vervaeke, I think, and combining relevance realization and everything with evolution.
I'm looking. I recognized the face. I'm pretty sure I've listened to the stuff he said, and honestly, I mean, I've talked to people who were social workers and people who dropped out of working in therapy because of these types of things. And yeah, it's not, I mean, it's bad. It's just, for me, I see this type of corruption is really corrupting. I'm sure it is corrupting the legal field. I know it's corrupting government and political science, and and part of what gets me a little upset is that for example, Brett Weinstein and Eric Weinstein, they will both kind of poo-poo the idea that there is a correct Supreme Court opinion. And it's like, no, they're not just, mages in black robes coming up with, and it doesn't matter. That's not true. Like, political science can, in fact, be scientific.
Mm-hmm.
And this was part of Yoram Hazony's discussion with and same thing by economics. Like, I studied these things because I believed, and I still do believe, that they are very, very important. And yeah, it was incredibly depressing to me to find out that these very important things are treated like any answer is fine. It doesn't matter. Just give us an answer and it works. And it's like, no, that is not true. There are correct and wrong answers in political science, in psychology, in government, in economics. And so, I mean,
at least there's more and less wrong answers. That's for sure.
But that's true of everything.
Right. But there's yeah.
And these are complex systems, but there has been a conviction among a lot of people that, it doesn't matter. And it's like, no, it does matter. And we find why are we having food supply problems? We're having food supply problems because people have been saying it doesn't matter. And it's like, no, it does matter who your politicians and your government and economics and when you do. So, yeah, I mean, I could rant about this stuff forever.
Yeah, I'm going to actually need to hop off for a bit, but it was nice.
It's good to have you on, and once you finish your damn dissertation, I hope to have you on a regular basis.
Sounds good. Okay.
Good luck.
Bye.
What was your point? I had to jump there for a minute. What was your point about the angle of corruption? And were you still back on the social sciences and Vervaeke and?
Well, basically, I mean, I think, it is corrupt. Like, we have a lot of people who simply think that it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter which policies they enact. It doesn't matter what the Supreme Court, whether you have the smartest people. Like, there's a lot of people who think, any 9 people could be on the Supreme Court, and it doesn't matter. There's a lot of people who think that.
They wouldn't do that to a sport team.
You wouldn't do that to a sports team, but the fact is, that is how Ruth Bader Ginsburg got onto the court. And when you look at the quantitative analysis of her opinions, she came in dead last. So somebody tried to do a quantitative analysis, which just means by the numbers, of ranking the justices we've had, and I think we've had 90 some justices over the history of the United States. And so, and they came up with two different measures. By both measures, Ruth Bader Ginsburg came in dead last, despite the fact that it's like there's definitely a skew towards people who are on the court now, because it was rating how they were cited in case books and stuff, right? And so every current justice should have definitely been on the top half for sure, right? And she rated worse than justices like from during the Civil War era, like times when we had really bad justices, right? But she came in dead last. So she's completely incompetent as a judge. She was completely incompetent as a judge, but people still celebrate her. And it's like, it's not even a matter of whether or not you disagree with her. Sotomayor, for example, agreed with Bader Ginsburg on everything. But she's not a bad judge. And you have to realize, like, 4 of the top students in the United States, and part of what may have made Ginsburg such a bad judge is she may have been choosing her law clerks because she similarly thought it doesn't matter how smart you are, how well you're able to be a judge and a lawyer. And it's like, it's very frustrating. I blame Richard.
Hey, Richard.
Yes, all my fault. Hello.
All your fault?
Yep.
There you go, Jacob. Any problem you need to solve, it's all Richard's fault. He will come up with a solution to fix it.
Well, I didn't say that part. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was implied.
No. Yeah. But yes, that is, I've never thought about it in terms of thinking that, well, you could say it's an attitude of, that'll do. Gosh, it seems like I'm the scapegoat here. But
Rene Girard. Yeah. Embrace your... Pick up your cross and bear it, Richard.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I need to read Gerard, because I haven't read him. But anyway. So I started your Claire Shaw videos today, Jacob.
My Claire Kaw video, the 5-hour Claire Kaw video?
Yes. I have.
I didn't even see this. I mean...
Oh, this was a while ago. Yeah, I did a 5-hour video on why people like Claire Kaw exist.
Yeah, because I didn't know she existed until last week. So, yeah.
Well, you're lucky. There's a reason why I have that Mendacity channel on my server.
I need to look at that.
No, you don't.
No, I don't.
It exists just to prove to people that there are people, especially Christians, need to understand, because there's this really bad... I mean, some Christians will say it's a bad interpretation of Jesus. Whether or not it's a bad interpretation of Jesus, it is something that some Christians believe, that, like, if you just love every single person harder, it'll, somehow it'll fix it. And it's like, no. There are some people you just basically have to go, no. And you know, I keep on talking about I guess it's Ecclesiastes 3. For everything there is a season. There's a time to kill. There's a time to unravel. There's a time to throw stones. And like yeah, I might enjoy throwing stones a little bit too much, but I think our society is definitely on the side of not throwing stones enough.
Yeah. There's always too much and too little all the time. So.
Nope. There's a reason I didn't take up baseball and don't throw stones.
Zach says, I'm very much a just war, pro-war Christian, and I apply that to public policy. Yeah, I mean, there's a genocide. So on Twitter, somebody mentioned, where was it? Okay, so here, okay, brace yourselves. This is a very, very ugly image, but I'm going to make you look at it.
Your images are usually small, so make sure it's not too tiny.
So it's an image of Donald Trump as Jesus.
Right.
And like that's Nancy Pelosi sticking a spear into his side, and that's Melania like as the Virgin Mary, right? And so this guy answered, "You wouldn't do that to Muslims, shame on you." And my response was, Muslims have spines, Christians turn the other cheek. And he said, no, Christians are ridiculed for defending their beliefs. For every other religion, it is hate speech and racism double standard. I ain't that person, though you do this in front of me, you're getting punched in the face. And my response was, there's an active genocide of Christians going on, specifically in Africa, but also in Asia. But I guess since it isn't in front of you, you aren't doing anything. And his answer was that's on the church. They have become too liberal. Look, there is an active genocide of Christians going on.
There is.
There is,
and
a couple of places.
There's a reason why. The horrible thing is there's also an active genocide of Muslims going on in Russia and China.
Yeah.
But we are so controlled by. So this really pissed me off when the Twitter files came out with the CIA's manipulating of Muslims. I went on E.A. Dawa's channel to see if he was discussing it. And as opposed to discussing it, they were, of course, talking about Israel. And it was like, dude, like,
priorities.
Why are you... Yeah, priorities. Like, look at what the CIA is doing to the Muslim community in Saudi Arabia and Yemen and Iraq and Afghanistan and Iran, right? And you're focused on Israel. And so it all goes like, why don't I rant some more? I don't rant enough. Do you think I rant enough? I don't think I rant enough.
I have told a few people that venting is a good thing. It's best to get it out.
Honestly, like, I'm not sure it's a good thing for me. It might be a good thing if it actually gets somebody to, like, pay attention to the things that are important, but otherwise... Mark says, Christians defend their belief. No one even knows what they believe anymore. They don't stand up for their values, much less their beliefs. And Zach says, cowardice. The live... hidden Christians are going to wait to be last, no worries. That they'll let the lions eat the other Christians first. Yeah, Mark has this thing. He says Christians are for lions.
Christians are for lions.
For lions.
Yeah, like the kinds
the point of a
name.
Christian. The point of a Christian is to be fed to a lion. Like if you're not willing to die for your Christianity, you're not really a Christian. And I think
that.
he has somewhat of a point for that. Like, but you have to be willing to die rather than kill, I think. Although sometimes some people need killing. They just do.
It's so that it is actually a very interesting topic. I think I mentioned on one of our chats about, or maybe it was something I typed to somebody, asking the young pastor at my church about, when it says you're to die to self or die to Christ, for Christ or whatever it is, how literally do you mean it? And I've thought about that because of my background, my situation, and that being one of the reasons that I got divorced. Because I think
Ecclesiastes 3. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. And the fact is, there's way too many people who think you can give one answer at all times to everything.
No, you can't. Not even in 6 months.
It's all your fault, Richard.
What do you want me to do, Jacob?
So how was Christmas? How are your parents doing?
They're good. We spent Christmas Eve at my grandfather's, and there was a flood in the downstairs.
Sounds like fun.
That's very fun. So my dad's quite hands-on, so we spent 3 hours cleaning that up on Christmas Eve. Finished opening presents at 2:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And but it was lovely. It was a great dinner, and we made it back up to our hometown for church on Sunday. And after I got home from church, I went to bed.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, but church was lovely. So it was good. Yeah, it's good. I saw your 7-hour stream when we drew on Christmas.
Yes.
I almost dropped in, but didn't get a chance to.
It was a very long stream. I wasn't actually there for all of it. Mark took about half an hour of it, I think. Yeah.
That's not that much, though. So 6.5 hours.
Well, yeah. I don't know how much it ended up being. But yeah.
Do you celebrate something around this time?
Well, people? I mean, Hanukkah ended 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago.
Right.
So, yeah. But Hanukkah doesn't always fall on Christmas. Yeah. And like I mentioned before, so there are actually Jewish customs around Christmas. So on the night of Christmas, some people have a tradition of playing chess, which comes from the Eastern European tradition of Jews hiding on Christmas Eve. And then a lot of Jews on Christmas Day will either go to the movies or go to Chinese food. Partially because Chinese
Really?
food, yeah. So the Jewish Chinese food tradition is actually it's a somewhat well known tradition because like the people at the Chinese food places, they're open on Christmas Day, a lot because a lot of them are Hindus and stuff,
Right.
or Confucian or
Right.
right? And also, Chinese food is more kosher style than, for example, Mexican food, which all of it has meat and lard and cheese together. So
That's go ahead.
it's no different than when McDonald's starts selling salads, so fat people would stop blaming them for being fat. I actually used to get when I used to get the salads at instead of the French fries at McDonald's. Yeah.
Good habit. I can't stand. Well, I'm getting better. I don't like dressing, which is the problem. So I actually went to a Korean restaurant today. They served salad as a first dish, and they put dressing on it, and I just couldn't eat it.
I love salad. So when Soup Plantation, like the one thing from COVID that I mourn the most is Soup Plantation. It was one of my favorite restaurants.
Mm.
But what I discovered, partially because of the whole Jordan Peterson carnivore thing, was when I started having more proteins and fats. Like I used to try to fill up on carbohydrates and on salads and soups and stuff, and I was constantly hungry. And I started eating more protein and fats, and that's actually helped me lose weight because I'm not hungry after eating fats and proteins.
Wait, did you just say you're eating fats to lose weight?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a really good reference for that?
Oh yeah. So I mean, I'm on keto. That's for medical reasons, but the ketogenic diet is what you can Google. And the idea is that instead of burning carbohydrates, mainly you burn fat molecule cells, whatever you call them. And fat burns differently. Because fat, I mean, if you're burning it, right, isn't going to accumulate in your body. And it's, for some people, a more efficient fuel until you get into ketosis. It's what you call it, where you're burning more fat instead of carbohydrates, and people do that for weight loss reasons. I'm doing the opposite of that. I'm trying to gain weight. I'm terribly underweight, but in any case.
Yeah, I'm just not as hungry all the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that would do it too. So. Yeah, carbs aren't great. They're, as Mark says, they're good for when you need to use fuel. So, but you know, I know a couple really athletic people who are on keto as well, and they just burn the fat better than carbohydrates. So, not a nutritionist, so I have no idea.
Okay. I'll look into some of this. It's an ongoing topic of discussion here.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm on keto because I have epilepsy. And so there's a connection between being on ketosis and having less epileptic activity in the brain, which is strange. Who knows why that happens, but that's a thing. So the reason why I can drive. So
Yeah. So I have I had to leave because my son was talking. He has autism. He was talking nonstop about fats and how bad fats are, and I'm like, they're not bad. They're not bad. They're part of the fuel. They are. So yeah, I'm like, it would be great to just find something to show him. Look,
yeah,
some fats are good, because I've been
yeah,
conversation all day. Off
yeah,
on.
yeah. Some of them are weird. There's the saturated, unsaturated thing. I can't remember which is which, but yeah, some fats are good in the right dose. So
Yeah.
Mark says margarine causes heart disease, unlike butter, and a lot of people switched to margarine because supposedly it was healthier. But apparently, yeah, there's so much corruption. And the nutrition industry is very, very corrupt, as is the Department of Agriculture. And a lot of conservatives refuse to acknowledge that conservative Republicans are a major reason why the Department of Agriculture is so corrupt. It's one of the things. It's one point of corruption you cannot blame on the Democrats and the left wing. I think the Department of Agriculture corruption is solely on Republicans and supposed libertarians and conservatives. But that's me.
Is that because of the economic factor?
Yeah, it's the
It's
rural.
kind of here too.
Yeah. All of the supposedly conservative Republicans still like, oh, the farm bill. Of course, the farm bill. And it's like, no. How about not the farm bill?
yeah, because they give it all to the big farms, not even the small
Well,
ones.
and
So.
the thing is, it's like the small farms. Like, don't get me started.
I wouldn't mind.
We could go. So, how was your chat with Rabbi Malott?
Yeah, we could do that. I was tuning in a bit. I guess
Did you understand any of the stuff?
Jacob, I tried to figure out why I was interested in watching it. I mean, I can get the contours and the dynamics going on and all of that, but I don't know. I think most of it is just like, ooh, look at this super secret system cracking. So I think that's most of my unconscious interest in it, but
well, it's not a super secret. So we have
for
the
me it
same
is.
denominational fights.
Right.
We have similar denominational fights within Orthodoxy.
Right.
Well, part of the thing is so Orthodox Judaism doesn't actually have denominations.
Mm-hmm.
And Orthodox Judaism wasn't a denomination until Reform Judaism was actually based on the Protestant Reformation. And it was in Germany. It started in Germany. And yeah, there were corrupt rabbis, but it's just really weird. I don't know. Wherever you go, you're gonna find out that the people there are human beings, and it's like a lot of times you look towards a religious community because you hope that it would be better than not. And the fact is, having seen I think both sides of the fence, right? I actually do think, yes, the religious world isn't perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better off than the secular world.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that. So the Baal Tshuva movement, which is what we must
Sorry, I'm
stop
reading
people from peopling. It is our only hope.
Kill them all. Just kidding.
So the Baal Tshuva movement, which is the movement towards people who were not raised Orthodox becoming Orthodox. So that's only about 50 years old. And frankly, I think the Rebbe, who we spoke about a little bit, was a big part of that. And he was a very controversial figure.
The one who
And-
died when he wasn't supposed to?
Yes, he's
Okay.
the one who died when he wasn't supposed to. He was never supposed to die. Lots and lots of people, and yeah, that's what we were talking about. Like, I know people who like were there, and it's funny. It helps me understand how Christianity started a lot better, because I know people who can't accept the fact that the Rebbe died at all.
Mhm.
Jacob, don't hide the truth. Pastor Paul Vanderklay is against any movement to stop people from peopling. Folks should know the truth. And there are people who still won't accept that he died. But hopefully, I mean, and that's actually David Berger, the guy who we tried very hard not to mention his name. Like, that was he still to this day goes around claiming that Chabad is going to become another Christianity, even though all of the things he predicted for the past 20 years have not happened. It's been almost 30 years now. And he actually likes to think that all of the predictions of doom and how Chabad was going to turn into a new Christianity didn't come true just because he in his lonesome was the person who was warning against it, right? Even though the subtitle of his book is The Orthodox Indifference, because most of Orthodox Judaism ignored him. This stuff is just... do you really care?
Who, us?
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear peopling in Judaism. So, insofar as that's interesting, it is interesting.
Yeah, well, all the Jews I know are people, and that's very, very disappointing.
No, please keep peopling. I enjoyed the talk that you had with the rabbi today. I missed the first little bit, but I don't think I was... I don't know. You still had about an hour.
Yeah, the first bit was even more insider baseball than the last little bit. Yeah. Lots and lots of insider baseball, but I don't know. I mean, that's why I did my video on Parhesia, or Parhesia, as the Christians like to say it, before. It's usually translated in the New Testament as boldly, to speak boldly, with Parhesia.
Finish that.
I did a whole video on it. You can go listen to the video.
Parhesia. Oh, you guys used a lot of terminology that, of course, I don't know, and I was trying madly to look up a few things.
Like, what were you trying to look up?
There was I've closed that whole set of open links.
Okay, look at my history.
Oh, you were trying to Google things
there
too?
were a couple of things.
Yeah.
I'm putting my own putting myself on the line here. And I look like an idiot.
No.
Oh, the Gemara. So I did learn what that was. The half of the Talmud. It's the Gemara.
So the Gemara is really the Talmud. So
Okay.
the Talmud is a commentary on the Mishnah.
Right.
And so the actual
Okay.
Talmud, when you open up a page, it has the Mishnah, and then it has
The Gemara.
the Gemara, which is the Talmud, yes.
And then it was redacted by Catholics, presumably. 'Cause you
It
were
was
talking-
censored by Catholics, yeah, when the printings... Well, there were censors even when it was manuscripts. There was a famous burning of the Talmud in Paris about 1,000 years ago that
Okay.
there are people who are still very sore about. But the when the Talmud was being printed, it was printed by Catholic printers. So
Okay.
the Talmud was censored. So all the stuff that's supposedly about Jesus in the Talmud, like, all of it's been censored anyway, and that was part of the discussion we were having. Is like, talk about adding insult to injury. Like, the stuff that's not actually in the Talmud is the stuff that was censored. That, like, people, and yeah, it's just funny. It is what it is.
Yep. Indeed.
I'm trying to look back. The part where you were talking about what was kosher based on the
lungs?
On the lungs. Yeah, that was interesting. I'd never heard
Yeah.
that before.
So Hebrew National hot dogs, they actually come from all the meat that is kosher, but you can't sell in a Jewish market because everybody insists on glatt kosher. Not everybody, but pretty much everybody. And that's part of the whole thing, is like, it's kosher, people, but, like, a lot of people won't eat it. And that's why I brought it up, because it's one of those places where I think it's most obvious that Orthodox Judaism has in fact been radicalized in, I think, in response to Reform and Conservative. Most Jews are Reform and Conservative. So, like,
what's the breakdown?
I think it's like 50% Reform, 35% Conservative, 15% Orthodox.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, the synagogue you came to is a Reform synagogue.
Okay.
But Shira is actually a conservative rabbi.
Oh, what?
Conservative.
So how does that work? Why was she there?
Well, conservative and Reform, the fact is, like, even the people who go to conservative and Reform synagogues, like, pretty much all of them, they think of Orthodox Judaism as the real Judaism, and they're like, but we're not that strict, you know?
Okay.
And so Reform and conservative rabbits constantly, and yes, I deliberately call them rabbits, they're constantly trying to figure out a way of being relevant. And so in Israel, only the Orthodox rabbinate is considered actual Judaism. So, like, if Shira were to go to Israel and perform a wedding there, it actually would not be recognized by
The government.
by the government. Yeah. Although they will supposedly recognize the reform and conservative weddings in the United States, but that's only for immigration purposes.
Okay.
And if you go to Israel, like you're not really married. You're civil married, but you're not
Right.
religiously married. Yeah, it's weird.
Well, civil and religious marriages are, I think, are coming up as a topic at in
Synod.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if you heard Paul Vanderklay's video today, but he mentioned our little discussion, Sandy.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, really? What about it?
Bring over to the the other Discord occasionally, and once in a blue moon we'll actually say something.
Well, so Paul, he just mentioned that. So Sandy and I were talking about the synod as far as gay marriage, and and Paul just mentioned that we were having this conversation on my Just Chatting stream.
Got it. Yeah.
I kind of have to love them. I'm related to some of them. And besides which, it's kind of like, for me, one of those topics where I'd rather err on the side of I really don't know that I think something's, off. Like, I would rather eat the meats not knowing, because the question I asked in your talk with Rabbi Malott was, so is this more of a question of just the type of walk you have with God, the way that you trust in terms of you walk with God in a way that is deemed righteous or unrighteous? But I'm not going to know unless he comments on it to somebody else, because I'm not going to judge myself that way. So I kind of sit in that.
Well, okay, so this is,
like I said the other day, I can probably easily make both sides of any argument hate me, but I tend
and this is on the gay marriage topic.
Well, it was about
on the
she
divorce.
was talking about the kosher.
Oh, kosher.
Yeah, I referenced both things.
I thought you were.
Yes, Mark. Yes, Mark. It actually was one of his better videos, and this is part of what's wrong with Protestantism. Is like, yeah, you have to judge. Is something kosher or not? Is something good or not? And you can't just walk around not making that judgment. It doesn't work.
One of the my partner and I had some interesting discussions over things. One of the best takeaways from those say 5 years to round up was the comment where I going over to the other Discord and I listen in on their the marriage crisis, and I'm thinking, I lived in marriage crisis and never ever labeled it such, because it doesn't make sense to me. Because that's just how you walk out your life day to day. Things work, they don't work. I loved what you shared in the Bible texts that you shared today. And I'm like, yeah, remind me there's a balance between what you just speak and the things you remember from liturgy or from saying the Psalms or whatever. And building bridges sometimes looks like an extremely short coffee because you're watching faces for stress levels. And to me, it doesn't look like theologically and philosophically arguing the point of why face levels are going to matter and why can't we get rid of that problem to begin with, because I can't, And to me, a lot of what I say about some of the other stuff falls in that place of just day to day. So and that's one of the things my partner said to me, is both came out of difficult marriages. So Richard, I was with somebody which I would consider a civil marriage, because I'm one of these weird people. I warned him because, he's like, I don't think I can get married again. He'd been married before. It didn't work out. And I'd been married before, and I probably would have stayed married until death, but I was concerned as to what that was going to look like and how imminent it was and who would blame themselves.
Okay, I am actually gonna set a time limit, because
I over-explain.
No, just
No, I do though.
I like I told Richard, I like to actually just
Where are we at?
let more people show
In?
up. Yeah.
Hey, man.
So we can talk for like 5 more minutes, but then I'm gonna kick the two of you off and let anybody else who wants to come on come and speak.
Perfect. So my question to you was on the on your talk with Rabbi Malott, when I liken it to what I was just saying about this, the thing my partner said in our last year we got to have was we worked through some really tough stuff. We built a strong relationship. I'm really proud of us. In your talk, when I look at Christianity, yeah, that. And when I look at some of the stuff you talk about here, you were challenging him on some of those spots, and he was challenging you right back. That's kind of what I see as being a much healthier take on things.
Well,
And
yeah,
this was
more
yeah.
important than who is right.
So this is part of what I was very shocked to find out, was how little Protestants actually talk to their pastors, and how little of questioning, and it was really surprising to me to see how little Christians speak to their pastors about important stuff, and I never expected that. But like, the part of the thing is, I didn't realize how much Christians get kicked out of their churches, and apparently it happens a lot. And it's like, whoa. Part of the discussion I was having with Rabbi Malott was the fact that, like, in Chabad, we certainly have a lot of crazies that the rabbis will not kick out, that other people are like, hey, look at your crazies, and like the rabbis are trying very hard to like thread that needle, and Christians seem to throw people. Like, Sam's been kicked out of churches, CW's been kicked out of churches, I think Luke's been kicked out of churches. Like, people get, like, doesn't happen in Judaism.
Yeah, and like my thing is that I, like, for 2 years I was trying to speak on homosexuality at my high school, but couldn't make it happen because of a small minority of parents who would not listen to what I actually said, because I'm in a conservative position. I'm actually agreeing with what they would say, but, oh, he's a homosexual, so yell at the board and the teachers and everyone.
Yeah, this was, I mean, I have a video on NYU and stuff, and it's like, yeah, we've discussed this. I don't actually like the idea of identifying anyone by their sexual orientation.
No, neither do I. But I think you still have to speak on the topic, don't you?
It depends. Again, so part of what was at Yeshiva University was the question of how you speak about it and what you do, and there were people who were demanding that there be a LGBT club at YU, and it's like, no. There will not be a club like that. No. Okay.
Good.
You guys are gonna go, and then if anybody else wants to join, they're more than welcome to join.
Yes, join, please.
Mark
New
looks
people.
like he has a desperate need to talk to somebody. Have a good one.
Who, Mark? Oh, Alright, but
Well, Mark has his time limit, so he's actually been. I gave him the time limit first.
Right.
He's only allowed 3 hours a week.
yeah, this has been going for an hour and 50, so he must have been on earlier. Anyway,
I better be
goodbye,
careful.
YouTube.
Have a good chat.
Okay, anybody else who wants to come on is more than welcome. Dominic, long time no see. How are you? How is your niece doing? Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. this is not a scientific experiment. It is leaving the room open for if somebody new wants to come on and talk. This was a primary method of my just chatting streams, is actually being there and available for like people to talk about anything they want. Clearly, it doesn't work at all. I actually had somebody tell me, that's why nobody wants to talk to you. And it's like, like, there are lots of things you can complain about me about, including I make myself the focus of attention, but like, nobody wants to talk to you? Not the greatest point in criticism against me.
Me?
Sandy, who let you back on here?
I probably did. I've got. Okay, hang on. Okay, I'm logging out of those. Did you just say some? I opened a second channel to this. Did you just say nobody was talking to you? Because there was a whole discussion going down the side, but when I reopened it, there was nothing. So were you seeing the comments line when you said that, or?
Yeah. No. I was saying somebody said to me that what's wrong with my way of doing things is that nobody wants to talk to me, and that's just not true.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
No, of course people want to talk to you.
Okay, now go back into the chat.
Yes, as long as
Bye.
you're good, I just wanted to make sure.
I'm good. Kodiak Wanab asks, any updates for the Mountain Jews, aka Mormons? Not sure what you're asking. This may be your first time here. If it is, you should click on the link and come on and talk. Otherwise, I'm not sure what you're asking. News editor where? News editor is one of the funnest jobs because you actually get to send people to track down the things you're interested in. Aha, but I believe conversation will save the world. Hello, Ali. You are new here. I am not a pastor. And there's a link if you want to join to talk. But so I deliberately leave room for people to join and ask things. We were having a nice conversations with some of our regulars, and I asked them to please allow other people to join if they want to talk. So that's the type of just chatting live that I have. So you're welcome to join and speak if you would like. Nice to meet you too. Whatever you would like to talk about. Modern dating. Well, if you want to come on, come on. I'm not just going to talk to myself, but I think it's not all that it's cracked up to be. I think the romantics kind of gave people a misunderstanding of what lust is. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Carbon 14 dating. I thought he meant like dating, as in people dating each other. That's funny. I didn't even think of that. Okay, people. I'm gonna go. I will talk to you guys later.